Look, in terms of the key thematics that I'm expecting to emerge in the natural resources sector this year, look, I think right up front and right in the top priority is going to be people and skills. We're looking, certainly with the restrictions that COVID's presenting, I think that's causing some difficulties and challenges with people being able to move easily around Australia, and that is clearly causing some stress. For example, in the exploration drilling area, there's a significant shortage of drillers because they source a lot of their people from interstate. Not only that, there's a lot of projects that are building up, and I think there's going to be a real challenge for talent, as there always is, but it's going to be amplified by the impacts of COVID. COVID management itself, just staying on top of the risk, the speed that things can change, as we saw just over the last couple of weeks. There's going to be, I think, ongoing pressure for mergers and acquisitions across the sector. There's no doubt there's plenty of parties that have got a vested interest in the story that they're selling, but there's also opportunities for that. Of course, the challenge on that is how you do that, certainly outside the state or outside the country in this COVID environment. And ever growing is the ESG environment, the environmental, social and governance reporting, and how you manage it. I think thanks to a couple of one particular recent event, it's sent ripples, significant ripples around the world in terms of how mining approaches this. And I think it's unfairly put a level of suspicion on that we just, unfortunately, we need to respond to and need to demonstrate that in actual fact, we're not a bunch of cowboys. We do manage these things carefully. And I think that will be a key thematic that's not new. It will just continue to grow. Continue to grow. I think outside of the gold sector and the gold, clearly our portfolio exposure to gold as Regis Resources, my top commodity picks for this year. Well, I wouldn't give one. I've always been a fan of copper. I certainly think that opportunity continues to grow with the EV, electric vehicle thematics. Nickel, I've certainly got a soft spot for it, but and I think that nickel will roar sometime soon. How soon, I just don't know. But I'm really keeping my eye on nickel, and one that's possibly maybe a little bit less acceptable, but I'm always a firm believer in coking coal. As long as the world consumes steel, as a net consumer of steel, and until there's a new process being designed and developed, coking coal is just a critical part of the growth of society because it's needed to make steel. So I think, despite its problems and its associated guilt by association potentially with thermal coal and all the issues associated with climate change, I think coking coal still has a bit of strength left in it. Look, as a managing director of a natural resources company in 2021, the things that I think that I have to be looking at and what does it mean to me, I need to be thinking about people. I think the COVID challenges and the restrictions that COVID has placed on us has amplified the issues. I mean, as a managing director, you should always be considering the talent and the capacity of your organisation, both for what you need now, but also what you may need in the future, and be planning for that. And that's the difficulty there, and the challenges have been amplified by the impacts of COVID and the restrictions that has put on people's mobility. So I think that's a key area that I'm got to continue to give consideration to. ESG reporting and management of it continues to grow. I can understand why, and I don't disagree with it, but it's just I think hopefully that area can start to get some consistency in the way that the investment community is looking to be able to get it being reported, because we have a number of different parties with vested interests in their approach. And I suppose our challenge is figuring out how do we align ourselves so that we are consistent with what the investors and shareholders and stakeholders require without and being transparent. So there's continuing work on that front to be able to get that right. And certainly, as always, I think for any managing director, it's the challenge of trying to figure out how to manage the short-term with the long term. There's the drive from sectors to get short-term returns, and there's always that drive. And there's the balance for long-term growth and long-term returns on your business. And those two priorities don't always align. In fact, sometimes they can be conflicting. So there's always a challenge for the managing director and the leaders of an organisation and the board to be working out how to balance those two. At times, they can be conflicting priorities.